Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from.
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
We struggled, as to strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
The subject of violence against women and girls has been one of the most worrisome conversations, particularly in contemporary history. Violence against women and girls is believed to be one of the most prevalent and pervasive human rights violations in the world. Globally, the United Nations says an estimated 736 million women, almost 1 in 3, have been subjected to physical and or sexual intimate partner violence, non-partner sexual violence, or both at least once in their life. Largely, this scourge has intensified in different settings, including the workplace and online spaces, and has been exacerbated by post-pandemic effects, conflicts, and climate change. The question is, what are the gaps? The world needs more investment in women's organizations, better legislation, prosecution of perpetrators, more services for survivors, and training for law enforcement officials. While all of these sound like a tall order, my guests will help us beat context into the conversation and share valuable insights on the place of women, issues of nation building, as well as socio-political and economic development. The global theme of this year's 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence is Unite, Invest to Prevent Violence Against Women and Girls, which emphasizes the need for funding, prevention strategies to proactively stop gender-based violence. Hello and welcome. I'm Uyag Mofwegbe, welcoming you to Global Morning in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. This is Global Television. Let's turn to the papers for you real quick. We'll begin with the Punch newspaper this morning with the big story right on the front page of it. It says Tinubu presents budget Wednesday, that is tomorrow. Federal government or FEC okays $1 billion loan. And then you have a few riders underneath it. FG targets 18 trillion naira revenue, raises exchange rate benchmark from 700 naira to the dollar to 750 naira to the dollar. Speaker, opposition lawmakers assure Nigerians of proper budget screening to grill ministers. We hope that practice changes very radically this time. But let's look at the headlines above the Punch newspaper this morning. Attack on judges, public sentiments can't displace law. That's according to the CJN and the NBA. All right. What's more, I'm best to succeed Obaseki, Shaibu declares. Of course, we understand yesterday in Benin City, the capital of Edo State, Deputy Governor Comrade Philip Shaibu had formally flagged off his, if you like, his efforts. We won't say campaign because officially INEC has not okayed campaign, the start of campaign for that election, which is scheduled for July, by the way, of 2024. But we understand, based on facts, that yesterday in the city of Benin, the deputy governor, who has had back and forth with his principal, Governor Obaseki, in the last couple of months, flagged off his efforts to pursue a ticket towards gaining place at the Osadebe Avenue, which is the government house in Edo State. So we'll see how this plays out, because so far we understand that he's one of the last persons the governor is considering to succeed him. Yet he says he's the best to succeed the governor. I mean, for somebody who has done, by this November, 7 years with him as deputy, so who knows, the deputy governor probably feels he knows the in and outs of how the government and the governance of Edo States function, but the governor is singing a different song altogether. So we keep our fingers crossed and see how this turns out. All right, but you go to the foots of the paper, the front page of the Punch this morning. It says President swears in 8 permanent secretaries, presides over fake meeting. Ondo lawmakers meet today, may declare Aiyedatiwa acting governor. This is obviously a follow-up to the intervention of the president with regards to the tussle between Aiyedatiwa, the deputy governor of Ondo State, and his principal, Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, who has been severely sick for months now. Recall that he had been flown abroad for a couple of months, returned back to Nigeria, and we understand he has been in Ibadan, the capital city of Oyo State, ever since. So the question is, what has happened to governance in Ondo State beyond the politics of who succeeds the governor, given the circumstances that the state has to grapple with at this point in time? This is a test of leadership. It's a test of patriotism. It's also a test of whether or not the governor and his deputy care about the interest of the people of the state. Because what we have seen in the last couple of months between Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu and the deputy governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa has been a case of 2 elephants fighting, and you know what happens to the grass now, don't you? But let's see the last headline from the Punch this morning. Shown gets staff of office December 16, court halts removal. Okay, that takes us to our next paper, everyone. That's the Vanguard newspaper. All right, on the front page of the Vanguard, just above the nameplates, banks ready for recapitalization. That's CIBN. Judicial decisions can affect FDI, CBN governor. FG jacks up 2024 budget to 27.5 trillion naira. Tinubu reappoints Melekiari, Group CEO of NNPC Limited. Appeal court judgment, protest rocks parts of Kano. We thought that wasn't going to happen again, given that security agencies, particularly the police, have intervened, but it will appear not everybody has been able to or found reasons to sheath their swords just yet. Diversion, NCAA grounds United Nigeria Airlines wet-leased aircraft. Appeal court sacks Kaduna Speaker, orders rerun in 5 polling units. Justices fight back. We can't replace law with emotions. That's CJN talking, Chief Justice of Nigeria, who actually swore in some senior advocates of Nigeria a couple of days ago, and then, of course, yesterday, again, right, some judges of the Supreme Court. ASU, Cornwall warned government against new varsities, say existing ones malnourished. You will find details of that story on page 9 of today's issue of Vanguard newspaper. This particular story here, ASU, Cornwall warned government against new varsities, say existing ones malnourished, again has raised the question of whether or not we need more universities across this country, whether or not we need more approvals for universities to be set up, or we need more funding, or we need autonomy for the university system in this country. Just yesterday, news came through that President Bola Tinubu has said that going forward, the university system will get complete autonomy so that we can have a robust, vibrant university system in this country that people can, quite frankly, be proud of. Because where we are today, I mean, sincerely, I'm not so sure how many persons are proud of the kind of university education we have in this country. Let's not even go to the part where we get to talk about the quality of graduates that we're churning year in, year out. As of 2015, some reports claims that Nigeria was already churning out no less than 300,000 graduates. 300,000 graduates every other academic cycle. So if that report was anything to go by, between 2015 and today, 8 years down the line, that number would have surged very drastically. So you're asking, what is the average IQ of these students? Are they employable? beyond the cry and the conversation around unemployment in this country. So this is an issue that should keep us up late into the night until we find a practical, long-lasting, measurable solution to it. Okay, but then we have other papers to look at for you. Quickly this morning, we have the Guardian newspaper as well. As we turn to the Guardian, I want to see the story that is just there right under the nameplate, and it turns out to be the big story on the Guardian this morning. $1 trillion economy, FG proceeds with unambitious budget, proposes 27.5 trillion naira next year. Those details are on page 6 of the Guardian, by the way. But then there's this beautiful infographics that the Guardian usually has in front of it. So it gives you insight into what the budgeting breakdown is like in terms of price of oil, which is the benchmark for this budget, $77. And then it also gives a projection as to production capacity. Again, that goes back to oil, 1.8 million barrels per day. But again, that's barring the factors around oil theft, vandalism, with regards to installations, pipeline installations and facility and so on and so forth. All right. Of course, it's also subject to acts of God. I mean, natural factors, weather, flooding, and so on and so forth. And then exchange rate is benchmarked at 750 naira to the US dollar. Okay. The 27.5 trillion naira budget translates to a per capita spending plan of 27,000 naira or $150. All right, 27,000 naira or $150. That's the what it translates to in terms of per capita. That is citizen spending. That is not a good place to be, but it is what we have to deal with, and we hope we make the most of it as we move forward into the future. But let's see other headlines on the front page of The Guardian this morning. UBEC bemoans shortage of teachers, 100 billion naira yearly funding, despite warning protests in Kano over Court of Appeal ruling. All right. CJN seeks amendments for termination of most cases at appeal courts. That's on page 3 of The Guardian newspaper. One of the highlights from yesterday is that the CJN has said that matters in front of courts across this country are delayed most times because of frivolous litigations that are brought. All right. He therefore says that more than ever before, the country now needs an ADR system that will take care of those cases that are not quote unquote so serious. All right. Alternative dispute resolution system that will address all of these cases. In other words, not every matter should come before a conventional court from top to bottom, whether it's customary courts, high courts, or appeal court, and so on and so forth. Some cases, by all means, you just go to some ADR kind of arrangements in such a way that they don't have to now follow through the conventional litigation system, which in itself can be very rigorous and long drawn out. But there's nothing really new, essentially, with regards to this call, because we've seen this coming for a long time. In 2015, I did a special report on the same issue and had conversations with some brilliant senior lawyers about the same issue. So it's not so much about the call for us to have a robust, if you like, well thought out ADR system. It is more about, at this point, the will, the political will to get it done. I mean, if our judiciary system cannot be trusted, if citizens cannot repose confidence in our judicial system, it also becomes a red flag for potential foreign investors, because these things have an interconnected implication. So somebody needs to come in, invest, say, $500 million in Nigeria, for instance. The person is concerned about systems in terms of people who want to do business. What's our legal system like? For example, if there's need for litigation, can you trust the system? What is the ease of business ranking of Nigeria as it stands today? So these are core issues that we must be sincere about in terms of having to deal with them. Okay. And then it says SCCI flags inconsistencies in FG's $1 trillion economy vision and MTEF. MTEF, by the way, is the medium-term expenditure framework. Okay, but let's take you to Daily Trust quickly, everyone. See what Daily Trust has got for us. 3 headlines just above the nameplate of Daily Trust this morning. FEC raises 2024 budget as Tinubu presents 27.5 trillion naira tomorrow, Wednesday. All eyes look to that presentation tomorrow. Fresh protests hit Kano over governorship disputes as police arrests 7. Tinubu reappoints Kyari as NNPCL GCEO, names Akinyelure board chair. Will never be overwhelmed by mob, says CGN. Judges must avoid embarrassing judiciary. Yadudu calls deciding election winners bad for polity. That's PDP elders. States LGs cry for development despite sharing 8.8 trillion naira in 2 years. So that goes to the heart of accountability and probity, and then judicious use of public funds across all states. Subnationals must bring tangible value to the table beyond just crying foul every other time. All right. Then quickly, we turn to the Nation newspaper for you as well this morning. Above the nameplate of the Nation newspaper, we find a story on the Nation newspaper. We find a headline with a picture of the deputy governor of Edo State on the Nation newspaper. All right. It says, Shaibu, I'm intimidated. My allocation seized. That's what he's saying on the Nation newspaper this morning. All right. It has a rider there. Deputy governor joins 2024 race. Okay. You'll find out on the front page of the Nation newspaper this morning. And then Supreme Court will get full 21 justices, Ariwola pledges, and has a rider that says reduce cases at Apex Courts. All right. And then we did 90 kilometers of roads in 1 year, says Osun government. Adeleke on holiday in Thailand. And then there's a story here that also says National Assembly under pressure over 2024 budget. President to present 27.5 trillion naira appropriation bill tomorrow. So apparently that story is replicated across dailies this morning. Akeredolu Ayedatiwa peace agreement heads for collapse. Deputy governor's loyalists pushing lawmakers to make him acting governor. I stand on Abuja deal, Speaker insists. Right? The question is, what's Abuja deal in light of what the Constitution says? Whatever deal it is, ultimately the Constitution is the ground up. What does the Constitution say in light of the circumstances with regards to Ondo State, considering the health state of the governor, Oluwa Rotimi Akeredolu? I mean, whatever accord, whatever agreement, whether it's Abuja, whether it's Lome, whether it's Accra, whether it's London, Frankfurt, wherever it may be, must be subject to the Nigerian Constitution, 1999 as amended. So if the lawmakers in those states, and indeed all those in office as of today, are not doing that, then it's a pity. All right. So we turn to the blueprint for you. Yeah, blueprint has got quite a number of stories today. It's been a while we looked at the blueprint, but let's do that quickly this morning. Okay, it says FG to unveil blueprints on nationwide digital switch over. Malagi. All right. As Tinubu addresses NAS Wednesday, FEC okays AFDB's $1 billion support loan for 27.5 trillion naira 2024 budget estimates. It has 2 riders underneath it. Pegs exchange rates at 750 naira to the dollar. Crude oil 77.96 per barrel. All right, that's $77.96 to the barrel. FG approves 3.23 billion naira explosive narcotic detection scanners for 5 airports. You can read that up on page 6 of the Blueprint newspaper. Tinubu retains Kyari, NNPCL GCEO, names Ogbodo, others non-EDs. NADA sets to crash maize, rise prices. CJ enter judges doesn't come to mob mentality in deciding cases. All right, those are basically the stories this morning for you. All right, we're going to take just our last paper this morning, and that obviously is the business day. All right, the business day is our next port of call. It says Jagba wave empties construction sites. All right, NNPC moves again to break petrol imports jinx. And that's all we're bringing you on the papers this morning. Do find time and make it a matter of importance to look at those stories in detail for yourself. A Poultry Association of Nigeria, PAN, had earlier this month raised alarm that the 12 trillion naira poultry industry is at the bridge of collapse. The reason, experts say, is not unconnected with the negative impact of the naira redesign policy and high cost of raw materials, especially maize and soybean, in a country that has stifled poultry production, leading to the closure of over 30% of farm enterprises and downsizing of about 50% capacities of other farms across the country. In this special report, our correspondent Chidima Jewison walks us through challenges and prospects associated with the poultry segments of Nigeria's agricultural sector.
With an ever-growing urban and rural economy, there had been great clamor for diversification of Nigeria's economy and a deliberate national drive to promote agriculture as a business, which makes agriculture account for about 23% of the country's GDP. Incidentally, the poultry subsector contributes over 20% of the total livestock and fisheries shares of agriculture's GDP, which makes agriculture a huge contributor to the nation's gross domestic earnings. However, the poultry subsector is still subjected to a lot of challenges. This special report focuses on the intricacies of poultry farming in Nigeria, how agricultural policies affect the business of poultry farming, and the impact the ban, which was recently lifted, will have on the poultry farming business in Nigeria. Even with the increased focus on poultry farming, the poultry subsector has experienced a lot of challenges over the years, which has impacted the business.
I think when we're talking about the challenges of poultry in Nigeria, the challenges are so enormous. But to highlight few of it, like in recent time, we had a COVID-19 pandemic, which really hit the industry so greatly that some of the farms were closed. We also have this cash crunch of cashless policy of CBN, which also posed a lot of threats to the industry, that many farms were closed down, especially in FCT here.
Even more so, with the recent lifting of ban on poultry items, what sort of impact would this have on the industry, positive or negative?
The idea of lifting the ban on this poultry product, I wouldn't say it's a bad one, but it has its attending negative impact on the production in the country. If the ban is being lifted, it will affect the local production actually. Most of those imported products, we can't ascertain the level of, health safety. Yes, in it, because most of them, you don't know how they have been preserved over time before they have been imported into the country. The state of emergency declared on food security is a very laudable program of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
As a fast-developing subsector that contributes over 20% of agricultural GDP, what developmental policies and action plans are being put in place to build the poultry industry?
There are a lot of policies and programs, but as we always experience, the implementation is always the problem. Because even in FCT here, I have worked directly with the Animal Husbandry Development. We came up with a good policy.
And what are the key issues that needs to be addressed to secure continued growth for Nigeria's poultry industry?
The key things that need to be, put in place. First of all, most of these farmers need funds for those in the sector, because most times we also want to access credit facility. The the term and the condition are not too favorable. The road to most of these farms are very bad, that hamper the success that ordinarily the farmers would have achieved.
In a recent interview, the Minister of Agriculture, Senator Abubakar Kyari, expressed readiness by the ministry to tackle challenges faced by poultry farmers as well as challenges of food security, in corroboration with the President's declaration of a state of emergency on food security.
In mere mentioning in his renewed agenda, renewed hope agenda, and I also see that hope, that commitment in him when he declared the food emergency in the country on the first day.
However, in what practical ways will these drastic measures effectively revive the nation's food and agricultural sector? Well, that remains to be seen by Nigerians. Chidima Jawasin, Global TV News.
To act is now. And right now, we are going to hear a special message from one of the world's leading women, the Deputy Secretary General of the UN, Amina J. Mohammed, who sadly couldn't be with us, but she wanted to make sure that you would hear directly from her.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us in this commemoration. The International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and Girls serves as a stark reminder of one of the most pervasive human rights violations and a global public health problem with negative multiplier effects across economies, politics, and societies. The rates of violence against women are alarmingly high and further aggravated by conflicts, crises, and emergencies. And the protracted global backlash against gender equality is threatening to undo decades of hard-won gains. Women's rights defenders and activists are facing more risks than ever before, including in the digital sphere. Halfway through the 2030 Agenda, we are far from achieving the target of eliminating violence against women and girls. It transcends borders and cultures. This year's commemoration calls for the special attention to prevention. Investment in prevention is to invest in our collective well-being. It means creating conditions where women and girls can thrive, unburdened by the fear of violence. It means addressing both root causes and drivers of violence, challenging discriminatory norms and practices, and promoting holistic prevention policies and programs. First, to address root causes and drivers, it is important to invest in data collection and analysis and use it to inform policy and programming. Second, to tackle discriminatory norms and practices, legal reform to enhance equality and advocacy towards behavior change is needed. And third, prevention policies and programs must be multi-sectoral, coordinated and well-resourced with a long-term vision. The EU-UN Spotlight Initiative provides a promising model. Results achieved have been historic and unprecedented. Nearly 500 laws and policies have been signed or strengthened. 2.5 million women and girls have accessed GBV services, and thousands of lives have been saved. Astride both Goals 5 and 16, Spotlight has strengthened civic space, as well as deepened government ownership and sustainability, evidenced by the tenfold increase in national budget allocations to GBV. As we prepare for Summit of the Future, your engagement in prevention is critical to accelerate efforts collectively. Investing in prevention is not just practical, it is transformative. We must act now for a better and safer future for all women and girls and for everyone. Each of us has a vital role. The UN family, development partners, civil society, and the private sector to step up our efforts in preventing and ending violence against women and girls. Let's turn our shared commitment into concrete action. And together, let's build a future where every woman and girl live free from violence. Thank you.
A cross-section of Nigerians has reacted to the announcement by the Minister of Mines and Steel Development, Prince Shaibu Audu, assuring of the federal government's commitment to complete the Ajaokuta steel construction project, which is said to have the potential of creating 500,000 jobs for Nigerians. Nigerians have aired their views concerning the issue of the ongoing Ajaokuta steel construction project. For a steel complex that has been comatose for decades, many Nigerians are full of expectations, and it serves as a test of government resolve. However, Edward, for instance, does not find the story particularly inspiring.
We've heard so much about Ajaokuta Steel, and it's like at a point we're beginning to lose hope. But because hope is the essence of life, we believe that this government, or whatever successive government, should do something about it, because Nigeria needs it. And Nigeria is more important than anybody. So we are believing that because of humanity, we need it. We can't continue to be stagnant. We need to move forward.
Roberts, on the other hand, expresses optimism and advises Nigerians to keep hope alive while constantly believing in and supporting the government.
The time has come for us to actually believe in the words of Mr. President. You understand, he's a pragmatic person. He's focused, and he has direction. And he has armed himself with technocrats. And I believe so much in the words of the Honorable Minister, who is a representative of the President of the Republic of Nigeria. And also, you have a permanent secretary, you understand, in that ministry that is a technocrat. And I believe that they will swing into action very soon.
For Wasil Awar, a civil servant, more commitment to the Ajaokuta steel complex is expected of the government, considering the need to industrialize Nigeria in order to encourage local production.
We have the natural deposit of this steel in Nigeria, so it cannot just be wasted, it cannot be moribund. If the other subsequent previous administration have been coming, they are making lips emphasis on it. But I think he is more pragmatic on it, as he laid emphasis on it now. But you have to realize that the Ajaokuta steel is not going to start from embryo. It has gotten to a stage before it was moribund. So now what he's going to do now is to resuscitate it. So by resuscitating it, all the manpower needed, the capacity and capability needed, he knows them. Just to ask them to come back. And once it is top on his agenda, so if it's top of on his agenda, it's going to lay emphasis on it, and the thing will be prosecuted.
Sharon Ajay reporting for Global TV News.
Violence against women continues to be an obstacle to achieving equality, development, peace, as well as to the fulfillment of women and girls' human rights. All in all, the premise of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, to leave no one behind, cannot be fulfilled without putting an end to violence against women and girls. My guest this morning is Josie Mudashiru, Executive Director, JAM Intervention for Vulnerable Children and Climate Change Initiative. Thank you for joining us on Global Morning.
Thank you, Mr. Louis. Good morning.
So I'm going to start out talking to you about the issue of violence against women. In recent years, it appears the scope of violence has expanded, kind of, because this sort of conversation we're having in 2023 about violence against women and girls is not the same, I heard when I was in elementary or high school.
The truth is that violence against girls and women has always been there. Mm-hmm. But it has become more noticeable, visible because of the social media and the fact that more women, more girls are now aware of their rights. If you speak with women of my age, at least you discover that the percentage of women that have been abused as children is really more than half. So this violence against girls and women has always been there. It's just that people could not speak out because they are aware of the stigma, the shame that comes with it. In fact, even now, we do advocacy, we talk to girls, we talk to women. we let them know that they should speak out. You know, people are still not speaking out. You'll be shocked at the statistics if every girl or woman that has gone through, you know, sexual or gender-based abuse is to come out and talk about it.
The UN is talking this time about Unite Invest to prevent violence against women and girls. No excuse. It appears we have been giving too many excuses over time.
Yes,
yes, and now they are urging us to invest. What kind of investment? Help us create context for that.
When you're talking about investment, we are talking about putting everything, putting resources, your money, your time into preventing violence against women. It's not lip service. It's not what you are going to be saying. You know, some people, you just talk about it. Government needs to be able to put their money where their mouth is. Let it not be business as usual. And we thank God for the new administration. We can see that they are really interested in women issues, and then the young people. You can see a lot of young people, especially young women, that are holding position in this new administration. So we are hoping that they are going to also be able to fund it so that you know, we can see a reduction in violence against girls and women.
Quite frankly, there are people who believe these 16 days of activism against violence against women is just on paper. It's just theoretical. That doesn't. It's not far-reaching enough in terms of the practical action needed to address this scourge. All right. I mean, this is something that started since on Saturday, 25th of November. It's going to run all through till the 10th of December. So the question is, what happens after 10th, and then, of course, life moves on to normal?
Just like we always say, this 16 days activism, you know, is just to draw attention, to create awareness, to sensitize people that every hand must be on deck, you know, to fight against this violence. It's not something that stops after that. You know, every opportunity that we have, we always talk about this. So, but this 16 days is quite is significant because it's starting on the 25th, which is the International Day that is against elimination of violence against women. And then it's ending on the 10th, which is International Human Rights Day. Now you can see the significance. We are saying, what that simply means, that we are saying that women's rights are human rights. So it's something that is not something that you do for a day or a few days. It's something that we should be conscious about every day and every time.
You know, you walked into the studio a while ago, and just within my first few seconds of conversation with you, it's clear that you are not only educated substantially, you've got experience with regards to dealing with issues around women and young girls. But I'd like to talk to you about young girls. They have many obstacles, or what business people would call headwinds, in front of them, especially in the area of education, right? So what are we saying to the young girl who is probably somewhere in a rural area where she probably doesn't have access to, of course, quality education on the average, no access to the internet, no access to smart devices, even basic hygiene is still a challenge, and stuff like that. So who reaches out to those people?
We reach out to them, and I'm sure there are some other NGOs that are also doing the work that I do. Like we have a program where we call Read for Change. And this Read for Change is targeted at young girls in either primary school or junior secondary school. And then we don't stay within the city center. We go into the villages, you know, what you call the rural areas. Like the last one we had about 2 months ago, I was in a small village in Kaduna, in southern Kaduna State, where we discovered that some of the school where I went to did not have a literature teacher. They did not have an English teacher. And we were there to donate books to them, story books, because what we are saying is that for you to be able to achieve anything in life, you must be able to read and write. At least that is the basic, you know, requirement. even if you are going to be a fashion designer, a mechanic, a hairdresser, you should be able to read and write. So when we go there, we try to read with these children, and at the end of the day, we give books to them. So, and then we talk to them, We talk to them, we try to let them know that no matter the challenges, you are facing, do all you can to get education. Just keep at it. Just keep going to school, and then going to a rural area, seeing people that are not from that environment is a kind of boost to them. It will encourage them, and then I know that we have been able to touch some lives. There are some people, those that have access to phones, they collected my numbers, and we are still, is a mentorship kind of thing. We don't just go and leave them. We try to encourage them.
I'd like us to quickly also talk about underreporting as a factor. People say, especially for those, women who are married, they get abused by their husbands one way or another. And the UN has done a very brilliant work by listing out some of these core areas where women, particularly within the scope of marriage, get abused by their spouses and stuff like that. And then one of the challenges we hear about, especially given the kind of environment, conservative environment we have in Africa, of course, including Nigeria, is that most of these women don't come out to talk about it. So it's only once in a while you get to see a pocket of women coming on social media to talk about them. Even at that, they still get bashed for the most part. So how do we deal with underreporting? I know in my space, in journalism, for example, my colleagues are doing a whole lot of work to spotlight these issues, but it will appear that more hands are needed.
The way we can improve on reportage of domestic-based violence is to encourage the women to speak out. There's no other way about it, because even the journalists, we have nothing to report if they don't come forward to speak out. We are in partnership with NAWATCH, the female journalists, and they are always there to assist, to report these issues. So, but like I said, we'll continue the advocacy to encourage more women to speak out, even though, the society does not encourage women speaking out. At times, we tell them when you have been violated, the first thing you should do is to report at a police station. But most women shy away from it because...
What could be the reason for that?
The reason is that, there's an adage, in Nigeria that you don't go to the police station and still come back and be friends. But I tell them it's not true. If somebody is threatening your life, threatening to kill you, right, and then you have, physical scars to show, you should do that. You can settle later, because that woman, because men also get violated, though we are talking about women too today, might need counseling, and after counseling, he might improve. So you don't just keep away from it. You don't just stay at home. Maybe you tell family and friends. Some of them will never tell you to go and report your husband because they are also afraid of the effect of that. So we need to speak out. Women need to speak out. You don't shy away from what you are facing. Don't be afraid that people will say, no, it's not true. It's your truth.
Right.
Always learn to tell your truth. It's your truth. And because if we don't do that, you are aware that we have had so many cases of death.
Arising from domestic violence?
Yes, arising from domestic violence. Because when two people from different backgrounds are living together, there are bound to be issues. So at times when you speak out, it might just take a little counseling, seeing a psychologist and all that, and then you are able to fix your problem. But when you feel, no, let me not speak, it's going to get better, it might not. It might just get worse.
I need to talk to you about something else. Nigeria is not particularly known to be a country that reports rape. And you can't have the conversation, quite frankly, about violence against women and girls and shy away from the case of rape. And that has been on the increase in very recent years. What can we do to also cut down on that? Some people say educate the boy child. Parents should educate their boy child. If they do that, it will significantly cut down on the incidences of rape. Is that enough effort?
No, there's nothing that will ever be enough. That's why we say all hands must be on deck. We must do everything we can. You know, at the last International Day of the Girl Child, we had the boys to joining us so that we can also educate them. Because if a boy child is properly trained, if a boy child has respect for his mother, his sister, he will never rape any other girl. So it starts from the home. And then just like this year's campaign is saying no excuse. There's no excuse because I've heard people saying the way you dress, attract.
Why were you there at 9 p.m.?
Why were you there?
Why did you go to his house?
Absolutely no excuse for rape. Because we have seen girls that cover up with hijab and everything being raped and even killed. So there's no excuse. So the way we can reduce this is to keep talking about it, keep educating the boy child and the girl child also to know that at a certain age, this is the way a boy feels and this is the way you will feel, the biological, feelings, and then to let them know that it's okay to feel that way, but then you don't have to take action about it. The fact that you, as a boy, you feel like having sex does not mean you should have sex. Because where are you going to get the sex? Because if you talk to a girl and she says no, what happens? So
she has the right to say no.
Yeah, she has the right to say no. That is where control and discipline comes in. And these are values that you start with as childhood. You start training your girl child and the boy child to be able to say no, and to be able to control their feelings and emotions.
Incidentally, it turns out that in recent times the calls for punishment for convicts of rape, right, have become very vehement. Women groups have even said, look, we are prescribing castration. Do you share that sentiments in a place like Nigeria?
For now, that has not been done, but I think we are making a headway because we have seen sentences, life in imprisonment, 20 years and all that. So at least we have moved from a place where girls don't even speak about it. They feel ashamed because people are going to be pointing hands and saying, oh yeah, that girl was raped and all that. We have moved away from there. We have moved to a place where women and girls are actually speaking and then they can find help. Because it's one thing to speak out, it's one thing to be able to find a support group and the kind of help that you need.
It's interesting that, as a young boy growing up, some years ago, I remember how that armed robbers had come to a particular house, 4 flats in one block, all right? So they would take everybody into one particular flat and they were raping the girls in turns. Turns out all of the 4 girls that were raped were the daughters of the same mom. So fast forward to later that evening, their mother comes to neighbors from the other 3 flats. They say, please, this should die amongst us, shouldn't get out of here. How do we fight that? Because it's a bad place for the woman. It's even a worse place for her children.
In fact, the first thing she should have done is to take them to the hospital, to get them checked out, and then they will need some kind of
maybe psychosocial support or something.
Yes, counseling from doctors, from psychologists, and all that. So but then I guess this happened a long time ago.
Several years ago.
Yeah. So she was more concerned about the stigmatization that will come from
and
it.
the dignity of our girls.
So, but do you know that singular act would have scarred the girls for life? We don't know where they are now. Some of them might be afraid to even get married. Right. Some will be afraid of sex. It's going to cause a lot of things. So it's something that you need to talk about. This is what happened. It was no fault of yours. You know, they need that assurance that in spite of what has happened, you are beautiful, you are loving, you know, you can still become whatever it is you will become in future. This has nothing to do with you. You know, they need that kind of assurance, which is what we are doing now with our girls.
You know, incidentally, when you talk about counseling in Nigeria, you talk about support groups, psychosocial systems, and so on and so forth. For many people, including young girls, it appears something very sophisticated. I'm not very sure that Nigeria particularly has a spectacular place for psychologists and professional therapists, counselors, and so on and so forth. How do we also fast-track progress in a way, I mean, in a bid to try to create that consciousness where somebody can say, look, I'm traumatized, I need to see a counselor like today? Because we don't seem to be doing that right now.
No, we have private trauma centers.
Okay.
But for the government hospitals, they have a section. It's just that people don't, you know, it's still something that is just coming up.
Awareness is also a
yes,
problem.
but the girls that speak out are referred to these government counseling centers. They are all, if you go to any government hospital, they are there. You have that section there where, you know, they can speak out, and then there's this confidentiality that what you discuss there is not going to go out. Yeah. So, and then they do several sections. You know, it's not a one-off thing. Maybe you're asked to come back like for a month and all that. So we do have it. It's just that it is only those who speak out, and then in the course of speaking out, if we see that they require these services, they are now referred to the hospitals.
I want to also talk to you now about something that's more of a dilemma. I mean, we've heard cases of incests and so on and so forth. Cousin, brother, sister, uncle, niece, father, daughter, mother, son, and so on and so forth. That's a bit more complicated than the conversation you and I have been having the whole time on this show. What should be the best approach in this kind of case? Because this is Africa, where we are ultimately very conservative, so there are certain things that we shouldn't be discussing in the open, because they say you don't hang your dirty linens in public, yes, and stuff like that. So how do we approach that issue and still get results in the end?
Incest is a result of, yeah, and it's something that, you know, when we read it, you try to just remove your mind from it, because
but then it's in front of us.
It's in front of us. I think it's there are a lot of factors. You know, we have economic factors, we have social factors, and then we also have people that, based on their background, they don't know anything about God, because you also, it takes somebody that is not God-fearing to want to sleep, even not with even with anybody else. If you are really a child of God and you fear God and you know what it says in God's word, that you don't hurt somebody else. So now we are talking of your own daughter, your niece, you know. We have heard, like I've read some, I've seen some, and then some of these cases happened when maybe they lost their wives, and then, I don't know, maybe something went wrong. That is why this issue of whatever it is you are going through, you need to speak out, because grief can actually mess up with your mental health. So some of them, maybe they take to drinking, and then they come back, the deed has been done before they realize that. But then the issue of uncles, cousins, you know, all these relatives we bring into our homes, they form 75%, my own, you know, estimate of people that we abuse, you know, during our own time. Because, you know, like I said, these issues have been there a long time ago. It's just that at times when you speak out, when you speak out and say, oh, this person did this, your mom or your dad will tell you to keep quiet. Don't say that. You see, that so even the women, yes, because there are so many groups on Facebook where people come to speak about these things. And I know there are women my age, older, that have gone through this, and these are people that were close to the family. Why? Because then we live in this kind of environment. You want everybody, maybe you are the only one opportune to be in the city, and then you bring your cousins, you know, your nephews, your nieces, and then you are staying in maybe one room. And then everybody is staying there. So you don't know what happens, you know, with your little kids, and then they get violated. And most of these people never said anything. They never told anyone. Some of them are just getting to heal after maybe 30 years. Some of them are just, you know, getting the help that they should have gotten long time ago.
You know, like they say in pidgin parlance, we are not Oyibo people, right? So there are certain things that are rooted, deeply rooted in culture and tradition.
We are now Oyibo people, because it's a global, village. Yeah.
But how do we also address these issues in light of the customs? I mean, our customary practices, our culture, our tradition. For example, I've heard somebody in 2005, for instance, where a meeting is being held. I'm a young boy. I happened to be at the meeting, and he jokingly says that, well, ladies are not supposed to be seated, ideally. That ladies are supposed to allow the men sit while they be on the floor. He probably meant it to be a joke, but that didn't come out right. However, I mean, you mentioned the good book a while ago. It says out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Yes.
That is still the thinking, that is still the practice in many African societies, including Nigeria. So how do we get these results? How do we put this word out in spite of all of these cultural realities?
What we are doing right now is, yes, advocacy, sensitization. And I know that I've read about more than that, cases of incest that have gone to court, and then the people involved were jailed. So it's still about speaking out. Right. And then we continue to talk to people, and then I don't really know how because the economic reality is there. You know, you can't say that when you have a grown-up daughter, you have to send her out of the house. The men need to do better. They need to be God-fearing, because and then maybe joblessness. Everybody should find something to do, because it is when you are not doing anything, you know, that all kinds of thoughts start coming in. But it's really a serious issue, and is very worrisome, and it's something that I hope that we are able to nip in the bud and it doesn't increase.
As we wrap up now, I'm just going to ask you this last question. The incidences of a man saying, until my wife has a son, I don't care how many children she has, as long as she doesn't have a son just yet. For example, somebody, a man was called, I'm told, I wasn't there, he was called to say, somebody announcing to him on the phone that his wife had delivered. This was going to be their fourth child, because they had previously had 3 girls. And then this was his brother calling him to say, your wife has just had a baby. And he goes ahead to ask, what did she have again this time? And his brother says, the same thing that she has been having. And then the man refuses to come home. All right. In this case, the woman and the girls are traumatized, no doubt about that. So beyond advocacy, how do we also get young girls to understand how there's some critical choices that they make in terms of who they're dating that most likely will ultimately lead to marriage also matters for them beyond I love him, I love him, I love him.
Do you know that at times when you are dating, you might not really
have the big picture?
Yes, the big picture of who this guy is. But maybe that's why, I don't know, people that they meet in the city, they start living together, and they don't do the right thing. But when you do the proper thing, there is a period of courtship, and then you get to know the background of this man that you are dating. It should help you to be able to make up your mind. But then, this also still boils down to the home. How are we raising our children? How are we raising our boys? Because we discover, I blame women. I tell women that I blame us. Because for me, I have 2 sons. And my 2 sons, there's nothing that a girl does that they cannot do. They cook very well. They can do everything. You know, because my first child is a boy, and then there's 7 years gap. Do you know that neighbors used to tell me that you are going to turn this boy into a girl? And then I said, okay, will you give me your girl child? You know, it is what I have that I will train. So the way I train my girls is the way I trained my boys. So if everybody is going to be intentional about training the boy child well, because the first thing you should do when a woman gives birth to a child is just to go on your knees and give God the glory. Because I don't know if these people come from homes where their dads were there with their moms when they were giving birth to them, then they would have been raised, you know, properly. Because you know what goes on before a woman can give birth. It's not easy. So many women die there. So for God to give you a child, for God to make your wife to be alive, for God to make that child to be alive, it's something you should be thanking God for. So that man, those men that talk like that are speaking from a place of ignorance. So they also need, you know, to be sensitized, to know that what they need to do the right thing.
Interesting. I'd like to say a big thank you to my guest this morning, Josie Mudashiru, Executive Director, JAM Intervention for Vulnerable Children and Climate Change Initiative. I'll say we're grateful for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And that's Global Morning this Tuesday. Remember, Global Television neither shares nor endorses the views of guests on our program. I'm Uya Agmofwegwe. Up next is Sports with Clinton. Agbo.
Clinton.
An apparently peaceful traffic situation can turn into a nightmarish experience with the activities of the popular but ignoble criminals called One Chance. They are violent criminals who disguise as either commercial drivers or as passengers. The trick is to shout, "One chance, one chance," giving the impression that the vehicle needs only one passenger to move. But jump in and you jump into a pile of miseries. Kabiru Adamu is a security consultant and confirms that this pattern of crime has taken an alarming dimension.
It is a common occurrence in most city centers. In Abuja, as an example, it's very difficult for you to go to any space where there are a couple of persons ranging from 3 up until 10 that you will not find at least 1 to 2 to 3 persons that have not been victims of One Chance, as long as the persons are using commercial vehicles.
So I entered the cab, hailing Papi.
Chidinma is a young mother. She had a terrible and pathetic experience in the hands of the criminals.
Chidinma was dropped by her sister right about here at around 8 o'clock in the evening. A Mazda car driven by a man and one other passenger at the back pulled over and hastily picked her. Destination, Mpape. But the journey was doomed because a set of horrible things started happening at the inception of the trip.
Immediately I entered. The passenger by my left, was behaving as if he was collecting his balance from the driver. So I felt comfortable. I guess they did that so that I wouldn't have to notice what was going to go on. So immediately after he collected that balance, the next thing he did was to stretch his hands towards my side, and here was on my neck while he was trying to stop me from opening the door by my right. So as I tried to open the door by my right, they were shouting, "You better cooperate. You know, go cooperate, but you won't die. You won't die this night. She said, go fit come out from this car. This is go fit come out. You know, go fit come out from this car." They were beating me. The first person that hit me was the man in front. So he punched me with, I don't know whether it was a ring on his finger or a rod. Mainly he punched me. That was when here, the blood started oozing from here. So I was in the pool drinking my blood. Then they now told me, "Lie down." "Okay, lie down." "No, go lie down, ba." So I was struggling. They've collected my stuffs. They've collected my bags at that time. I didn't have my bag with me. So they were telling me, "No, go lie down, ba." So I thought they wanted to rape me as they were telling me to lie down on the floor of the car. So as I tried to lie down on that floor, the one by my side too now slapped me, and he tried to strangle me too. That was where these marks came out from. So he was struggling me. I was telling me, you go die this night. Maybe you no want cooperate. You go die this night. You go die this night.
Chidinma was lucky to escape alive because she did not fit the correct profile of the perfect victim the criminals were searching for their sinister intentions.
By the time they were done beating me, it wasn't like the madam, you know what you go do now? You go cut your breast. I said, okay, sir. He now said, do you have kids? I said, yes, I have kids. He just kept quiet. The next thing I saw was that he told me, okay, oh yeah, get up.
Alone in the night.
This young lady was also lucky because she survived and agreed to share her experience with us.
I've been attacked in this beggar before. I was hit from behind. My phones and everything were collected. And it took me years to be able to stand in beggar and get a car and pick up a cab.
In a daring display of impunity, most of the criminals move around with POS machines for ease of stealing money out of the bank accounts of their victims. Security experts explain that this is very possible, especially with the emergence of new financial outfits who ignore the vigorous security check on customers before opening customer accounts.
A lot of the instances that we've monitored, they actually use the financial systems. Now, the reason for this is commonplace. Number one, we do not have a national database for individuals, Nigerians actually. And more importantly, even the banking system has not put in place infrastructure to reduce the possibility of this from happening. And then secondly, where it happens, to trace the perpetrators, arrest them, and then prevent further crime.
Abuja is Nigeria's seat of government. It is also a bubbling cosmopolitan city that attracts people from every part of Nigeria and even abroad who come mostly in search of economic opportunities. But like many emerging cities facing the challenges of growth, crime has become a major issue. The June 2023 edition of Nigeria Security Report for Beacon Intel, a security consulting firm, shows an increase in crime in not just Abuja but other major Nigerian cities. The FCT Police Command says it is doing its best to fight crime in the territory in order to protect the security and welfare of citizens.
We have created a tactical squad called Anti-One Chance, which they have been charged with the responsibility of these one chance activities to wipe away in conjunction with the DPOs as well. The DPOs are doing on the divisional level, and this squad that I mentioned, Anti-One Chance, has been deployed also to each division.
The FCT Police Public Relations Officer says the police needs the cooperation of the victims and other citizens in order to tackle this despicable crime called One Chance.
Sometimes these modus, they change their modus, though we've identified the modus they are using. But when they know we identify them, they also change their modus. So when if you find yourself as a victim, it's only wise and advisable that you report these incidences to the security agencies.
I actually did not believe that they could do anything about it. That was why I didn't report to them.
Our law enforcement agents that do not see this crime as a major crime. We've been in instances where we've monitored this development on behalf of our clients. We will report the cases by providing the telephone numbers that were used in the crime, the account numbers that were used in the crime. The response you get from the law enforcement is that they have bigger challenges. And this is the effort they will use in stopping this is not what the benefit.
Victims survive and injuries are treated, but the emotional scar takes a very long time to heal.
It took me months or if not years to actually recover. And psychologically, everything around me now, even if I enter a cab now, I will start to be conscious of where I am because of everybody around me is a suspect.
The one that was repeatedly beating me, I didn't see the one on the front, his face, but the one at the back, I kind of saw his face. So when I see someone that looks like that person, I'll be like, are you sure it's not this man that beat me that night?
Kabiru Adamu says commuters should avoid flagging vehicles along the road. Instead, approved and designated motor parks should be used. Anjum Abdullahi.
Visited upon 1 in every 3 women. Who are these women whose dignity and rights we men so whimsically deny and treat dishonorably in some situations as if they are mere possessions, inanimate, and so easily replaceable? They are our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, our beloved granddaughters, our cherished loved ones, the overwhelming majority of whom guide, nurture, and support us as we advance, sometimes with great success, that commands the admiration and respect of the community through our lives. I commend the Secretary General and the UN Women for spearheading the Unite campaign, spurring political will and, critically, the availability of resources to prevent and to end this heinous scourge in all its forms and in all parts of the world. The history behind the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and the designation of 25th November to commemorate it is not a celebratory one. Rather, it recalls the assassination of the Mirabel sisters, who displayed exemplary bravery in the fight against political oppression. Today, 63 years later, the dangers facing women and girls still loom large. Globally, an estimated 736 million women have experienced physical or sexual violence at least once in their lifetime. 86% of women and girls live in countries that lack robust legal protections against violence, and less than 40% of women who experience violence seek help of any kind. These statistics say nothing of the increased risks women face in conflict settings and amid compounding stressors such as climate change and the COVID-19 pandemic. I therefore could not agree more with the Unite theme chosen this year. We know that investments are crucial for the advancement of gender equality, and yet global investments to prevent gender-based violence are still far too low. Aside from being a flagrant violation of their human rights, violence against women results in significant costs that are borne by everyone, most prominently by the victims and survivors themselves, but also.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from.
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
We struggled as to strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.